Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. So lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you. I know that life outside.
Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world, and welcome to tonight's live stream. But before we get onto the subject, I just want to wish all those people in Gauteng and Johannesburg, I hope you keep snugged up under the rugs, because apparently it's friggin' cold over there. I believe it was minus 3.5 this morning in Krugersdorp, which is, it's cold, believe me, we never get that here in Brisbane. Now, other news is that over 210,000 views have been done on last Friday night's live stream with Jeff regarding allegations of money laundering by the Ruperts and the ANC elite. And that's quite a large number. It's heading up to 250,000 views. This week's schedule for live streams. Tomorrow night, there will not be a live stream. We actually have scheduled electricity maintenance outages in this part of Brisbane. So we're going to just, I'll leave tomorrow night because we don't want lights going out halfway through, rather like load shedding in South Africa. Wednesday, we got Jen DeSanta, who's going to be exposing, and this is a really huge story, exposing the negligence of nursing staff in South African hospitals. So that's one to watch out for. Thursday, the 13th of July, we've got Colleen from Skidmarks and Muzi and Kosi joining me. And we're going to be talking about the lost generation in South Africa. And that's going to be a fascinating discussion. And on Friday, we have Dr. Peter Hammond coming on. And of course, he's a favorite here on Loving Life, and he's going to be talking about Kwaziza Bantu revival in Zululand. All right, now tonight's live stream, I have Selby Makgotho, and we're going to be talking about the sort of shenanigans that go on in South African prisons. And if you look at what happened with Thabo Bester, you'll understand why that is happening all over the country. Let's cross to Selby and get the show on the road. Here we go. Oh, by the way, this is pre-recorded. Hi, Selby. Good to see you.
Good morning, Scott. Thank you for inviting me. Good morning to your viewers too.
Now, Selby, we've got a very serious topic to discuss today, which is about the correctional services and the justice system and basically the entire, the government's looking after crime. And I want to start off with this question to you. South Africa's correctional services came under scrutiny following the dramatic Thabo Bester escape. What do you make of this?
Well, this is actually an extraordinary case, Scott, in the sense that it took almost a year for the authorities to realize the escape of Thabo Bester and his accomplice. There were quite a number of repercussions that are apparent, in the sense that at first you look at the gravity of the things that made him to serve the sentence.
Yeah.
It was, but now one of the things that actually I did raise publicly and openly was to the effect that it would not seem that the victims of the crimes concerned were not warned, so they were put at risk. And that was a huge adversarial effect that needed to be nipped in the bud. But over and again, it exposed the security lapses at the correctional facilities in the country, in the sense that if people can do as Thabo Bester did, then we are all not safe. And it bothers on the question, what is happening, what is the relationship between the correctional facilities officers and the inmates. So that whole broad of issues, that range, is actually coming into question in view of what transpired, how it happened, and how it was actually, it left the country actually with an egg on its face.
Yeah. Now, look, it would appear that there are shenanigans going on in the correctional facilities, and it looks like there are inappropriate relationships between prisoners and offenders, and maybe those who are supposed to be taking them in care or guarding them.
Well, one of the things actually, sometime in 2005, the government appointed what was referred to then as the Jali Commission to look into allegations of irregularities in the prisons. The report actually stretches up to 2,000 pages that was presented to Cabinet way back around 1998, 1999, somewhere there. And the very, very same issues that are confronting the country in the context of the Thabo Bester issue are the issues that Judge Jali at the time did pick up, did warn about, but most importantly, it was an issue of the inappropriate relationship, the proximity between the prison facility and prison authorities and the prisoners was an issue, because it would appear that they are being subjected or exposed to these prisoners. And one of the findings at the time was that the prisoners seem to be well loaded financially. They seem to be running their criminal syndicates, running their business operations, and using these very same correctional facilities. Had my view, which I've also articulated, was that had there been a firm stance on the Jali Commission, particularly on the implementations of the recommendations, perhaps we would not be having this type of a situation. But however, it exposed the system. And one of the things that I also asked was to the effect that I don't know whether it was only the Thabo Bester issue, because even subsequently to that, when Parliament tried to intervene in the whole set of facts, we got exposed to several embarrassing episodes, such that the inspecting judge of the prison facilities ultimately is the one who blew the whistle through the media, having been frustrated by the cooperation or the response from the authorities. And one then begins to question, as an inspecting judge, if then he is struggling to have the full cooperation, what more about an ordinary person in the street who picks up corrupt activities and makes every attempt to report and to get them to be attended? So it was a whole lot of issue. But again, the company that was contracted, you look at the duration is G4S. It is a 25-year contract, and that in itself is bound to come up with some inappropriate relationships between those who awarded the contract and what actually is happening. We are pleased with the stance that has been taken by Parliament and the executive to bring to an end the contract, because already, if ever a forensic investigation were to be instituted in the whole contract life, the lifespan of the entire contract, I'm quite sure that they'll pick up quite a number of irregularities.
Right. Now, Selby, why was it so difficult for the Correctional Services Department to note the escape of Thabo Bester until it was picked up by people outside, people in the public?
Well, that was a well carefully executed plan for him to escape. It was actually so well staged such that it would then have been difficult for someone or any other authority to pick up the escape. Remember, the allegation is that they managed to bring in a dead body in the prison cell,
yes,
bend it so that it would appear that it was Thabo Bester. So, in the normal course of events, that would have meant that is the one who died in that fire. But again, the little problem that actually subsequently came was that the DNA test should have determined or should have picked up that that was not Thabo Bester, but apparently that was not done. And it would appear that that is part of the broader investigation as to how the body was brought into the prison cell and all those things. But I'm happy because the matter is currently before the courts, and I do believe that all the allegations, all the things that you are concerned about were traversed in the courts, and ultimately the public will get to know the truth. At this stage, it is just speculation, anger, frustration, and so many unanswered questions.
Yeah.
Because this thing has never happened before in the history of the country, and I do not remember any other country that has gone through the similar episode.
Yeah. Now look, one of the intriguing things I find is Thabo Bester's girlfriend, that doctor, very attractive young doctor who somehow got ensnared with this guy who's, he's not really someone that you'd want your daughter to go out with. How did that all happen?
Well, it would appear that this Thabo Bester guy was a very smart guy, a smooth talker, somebody who could easily get what he wants. I mean, he could easily get any woman that he wants. You will recall that at some point, right inside the prison cell, he was able to use the very, very same doctor to put up a massive event in the country, and it attracted high-profile people. And I was reading one of the papers quite recently that even during his prison life, he would be able to sneak out, get to the hotels over a weekend with the assistance of the partner, Dr. Nandipa. So one then starts to do believe that either it is a love affair or either they are partners in business or any other form of description that will describe their association. But again, and you look at the modus of, and this doctor also was able to get the assistance from her family side. The father is also in the dock, and I think one or two more relatives. So this is just a whole mess, in the sense that it actually, the dots do not connect as yet. But like I say, the matters are before the courts, and we do believe that ultimately the courts will come to a fair determination. There is also a doctor who is a friend to Dr. Nandipa, who came out in the open quite recently. She took part in one of the TV interviews and is angry at how her passports and her other official documents were accessed by this lovebirds. to the point of being found in their possession when they were ultimately nabbed in Tanzania.
Because just a bit of the background to Thabo Bester before he was incarcerated. He was a well-known con man. He was stealing other people's money, and that's where he basically got his money from, isn't it?
Well, it would appear that he got his ill-gotten gains through dubious, nefarious means.
Okay.
Because I mean,
I know what you're talking about.
yeah, because it is very, very difficult, Scott, to understand how this person actually makes his money.
Yeah.
He has never been in, he does not even have any formal education. He does not even have any proper identification document. It was only issued quite recently. So, as to how he made his riches, is something actually that requires a lifestyle audit. But we do believe that that is also one of the things that the considerations that will ultimately be made as and when the matter goes forward.
Yeah, well, look, I've got to just put it on the record that I think Thabo Bester is fugly. I mean, he is so ugly, it's incredible. I don't understand how any woman could be attracted to someone like that. But anyway, that's look, I'm a guy, so maybe he's got something I don't understand, I don't get. But let's move on from there. What is the role of the inspecting judge of correctional services? Isn't he the one who blew the whistle through the media after allegedly being ignored by authorities? Now, I just want to put the emphasis on being ignored by authorities, because with De Ruyter at Eskom, he suggested that he actually alerted top politicians to the corruption going on and nothing was done. Is there a problem when it comes to people in positions of authority in South Africa acting on advice given to them by whistleblowers?
The Correctional Services Act stipulates that the role of the inspecting judge is to oversee the performance of prisons, the conduct of prisoners and prison officials and their conditions, but most importantly, to bring up any human rights violations that might occur in the course of their prison incarceration. So as and when he does that, obviously he will do oversight visits, pick up any human rights or any constitutional violation being meted against the prisoners, and it becomes his duty to bring that to the attention of the authorities so that it is easier for them to immediately intervene and get any form of assistance where so required. But in this particular situation, a different approach has been applied in the sense that as and when it was brought to his attention that there was something wrong, he did try, but unfortunately in the absence of any compelling evidence, his issue could not be taken.
But hang on. Surely Thabo Bester would have been in the books as someone who's actually at the prison where he escaped from. So if he's still in the books as being a prisoner in there and he's not there, isn't that pretty comprehensive evidence that something happened?
Well, that should be, but remember how this whole issue was stage managed. It was such that it actually made it clearly possible to remove any shadow of doubt that the person who died was indeed Thabo Bester. So as soon as that had happened, it was then immediately brought to light that it was not him. So people started tracking, suspicions started being raised, and that is why the inspecting judge ultimately found it upon himself entangled in this whole situation, such that then he started to probe and wanted more resources, more strength to do so, because the Act actually limits his powers in as far as the probing is concerned. His can only be to pick up the violations, human rights violations, and alert the authorities. But in terms of the actual investigative powers, he does not have. Hence, it was difficult for the inspecting judge in this situation to immediately put resources together, get into the issues, delve deeper, look at what may have transpired in the wake of the allegations that were brought to his attention.
Right. Now look, some time ago, government of South Africa appointed the Jali Commission to probe transgressions in correctional facilities. It made groundbreaking recommendations. Were they ever implemented?
It looks like partially yes, partially no, because the report, like I earlier alluded to, is some 2,000 odd pages detailing the extent, the gravity through which the corruption at the correctional facilities is taking place. I don't know what actually happened to that report ultimately. It just came to my attention as I was doing some writings or some research around this whole issue, such that I just went into the recommendations, and in the main, they looked at the depth of corruption happening in the correctional facilities. It will be an interesting question to check with the authorities whether that was implemented successfully, what happened to the recommendations, and why would it be, because I mean that came also at a cost to the taxpayers, that a few years down the line we are still being subjected to the very, very same situation that we ought to have prevented through the Jali Commission. So one of the fundamental things is that you look the corruption actually, because the Jali by itself looked at the prisons in relation to the correctional services authorities and the prisoners. I mean, one would hear of instances where the prisoners, yes, are so powerful that through they even use some of the officers to help them to run their errands, to help them to run the syndicates on their behalf, and bring in whatever gains that they made outside there. So that is one of the things that Jali did raise, that up until we get to the root cause of this, the relationship, the proximity, we are not going to make much difference. And it would appear that still seems to be a problem, because the prisoners spend most of their time, in fact all day, with the prison warders and other correctional facilities. So they don't have access to them. They can easily manipulate them and use them to advance their own means of survival. So a question would always come as to why is it that the prisoners do have lots of money, it would appear, when they are in prison, who is actually running this for them. And in some instances, Jali did find that the very, very same prison warders are the ones who are running these businesses on their behalf, and they are being paid to do so.
Wow. Well, I just want to use the analogy of Dr. Sean Phillips, who's the Director General of the Department of Water and Sanitation. And I know that's got absolutely nothing to do with correctional services. But he actually raised a point in a Radio 702 discussion just earlier this week, that when it came to the issues with the municipalities and their water and sewage, he said that they gave them instructions on how to fix what they where things were going wrong. And he said, you know what, without any exceptions, all these municipalities came back with programs to put things right. But he said the problem was very few of them ever implemented them. It was just bullshit on a piece of paper. That's why I'm asking about these groundbreaking recommendations. Were they implemented? Because it seems like that's what happens in the current state of South African bureaucracy. People talk a lot, but they don't do anything.
Yeah, well, implementation seems to be a very, very big issue. And one of the things that actually government of South Africa is putting much focus on is on the policy framework coordination, such that as and when there is anything that needs urgent implementation, people can then be taken to task. I mean, we are currently having the Zondo Commission that needs to have its recommendations implemented. There was a commission that was put out there, but once it made recommendations, the government seems like it was not ready, and that is why you find that it's almost a year or so that we are still taking time to check which ones to implement, which ones to implement first, and so on and so forth. But going back to the Jali Commission, it would, I think, maybe in the next session we may need to check with the government in detail whether this Jali Commission recommendations of 2005, the final report was tabled in 2005. What happened to its implementation?
Well, look,
I do not know.
I'm going to give you another example because I think this is fundamentally where things are coming unstuck. I have a friend of mine on Loving Life TV. His name is Peter Sito. And he's been a thorn in the back of the police minister, Bekesele. And he got to meet Bekesele about, it was close to 2 years ago now. And Bekesele promised to set up, in fact, he actually set up a committee to look into farm murders and farm attacks and promised that there would be meetings and so on. That was 2 years ago. There hasn't been one meeting yet of that committee. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. There's a lot of talk, but then it's all bullshit. They don't do anything. It's like, okay, we'll do it. Here's this committee, and then they forget. They go away, and nothing gets done.
Yeah, well, that would be a problem if ever commitments are made but hardly implemented. It's something that actually we need to take care of. We need to make sure that we attend to anything because it does not help. Setting up a commission, for instance, costs a lot of money.
The Zondo Commission over R1 billion.
Yes, it cannot just be a commission for the sake of it. Ultimately, the purpose of setting up a commission is to probe the truth, expose the truth, and ultimately put it into action. But I think the bigger picture is to remedy whatever defects that are being picked up in terms of by this commission. So it cannot be that the commission then has this situation, gets appointed, made recommendations, and then they sit there together. That I don't think is what our constitution makes a provision for. That our various legislative prescripts do agree with. It may be just here and there, but in the ultimate end, the need to implement the resolutions is non-negotiable.
Yeah. Now, Selby, getting back to Thabo Bester, what went wrong in our prison facilities? I mean, they're supposed to be a secure place to hold people who are dangerous in the community.
Corruption is the only thing that is contributing to this problem, says Scott. Because if ever people were just doing what they are expected to, we would not be having this type of a situation. We would not be having a type of embarrassment as it happened. Our corrections facilities are supposed to be centers of excellence, centers of reforming offenders, but most importantly, places where we can all sleep comfortably, that people who have committed wrong to the society have been taken away and are now confined to a safer space. But if the correctional facilities or prisons by themselves become newsmakers in the sense that ultimately they become centers of corruption, I don't think that is a fair thing to do to the victims, to the country, but most importantly, to the people who are looking into the justice system holistically for relief or for any form of remedy.
Well, my understanding from everything that I've read and watched on videos and stuff like that is that when someone lands up in prison in South Africa, it's like going to school. You know, you get involved with one of the groups like the 14s or the 28s, and you're sort of taught how to actually do crime. You might have gone in there for something really petty because you were hungry, and now they get you involved in a gang, so when you come out again, you then pulled into that gang, and then you're really into heavy duty crime. So it's almost like a training center for crime.
Instead of it being a rehabilitation center, I know of one or two people who have gone to prison for longer jail terms and who ultimately came back with their university degrees, who, upon being released, went back to their communities to make a difference. I mean, they became like overnight pastors someone who just suddenly saw the light. And that is what we expect of the prisons
Sure.
in our country, to reform, to rehabilitate, to turn around the lives of these people and make it so that once yesterday cannot be like once tomorrow. So if a person has been in prison for whatever reason, we expect that once the person comes out of the jail, criminal conduct will then be a thing of the past. But to hear that there are criminal syndicates, the cash in transit are being planned in prison, right in prison, inside prison walls, very, very serious and severe crimes are being planned there and only to be executed outside, then I'm not sure if ever the programs to rehabilitate perhaps needs to be re-looked into, or what actually needs to happen. Because one of the things that I wrote about was to check whether these prison officials have been vetted. Can they stand the scrutiny in terms of their financial interests, their financial declarations, so that we can be sure that we are not having criminals masquerading as prison officials?
Right. Just give me a second, please. I'm just going to turn this down. Sorry. Okay, I'm just trying to turn off this blooming phone. Oh, okay. There you go. I got rid of it. Okay. Now, did South Africa? No. Let me start again. What lessons can we learn from this, Selby?
The lessons that we can learn from this is that we need to be sure at all material times that our correctional facilities are safer places for the victims in the main and for the country, and that there is no confidence or public trust that we lose as a result. As matters stand, I mean, in the wake of the Thabo Bester issue, there was a lot of trust deficit that actually shook the entire country and, of course, the continent and even the global community, because it was just a bizarre as to how did it happen that a person escapes, most wanted criminal, spends a year right here in Johannesburg, nobody picks up. It brought in shame to South Africa by the international community and by the other world leaders who are looking up to South Africa as a constitutional democracy and as a properly governed state. I'm glad that in the ensuing court developments, we see more and more people being arrested. The most recent one was last week, because clearly it could not have been Bester and the doctor. Quite a number of people were involved. But still, it would mean, I wish we could also have a probe to look at the source of the origin of funds, of the monies that were used in the whole transaction. Where did this money come from?
Yeah, exactly.
When was it raised? Who raised it? Because Thabo was inside the prison cell. But then it was in 2011, 2012, somewhere there when he started serving his life sentence. Fast forward to 2022, almost 10 years down the line, how did it become possible that he suddenly had money to grease the palms of these people to facilitate his release? So all these questions, I wish one day we could have a probe around that so that we can be satisfied that that no one else is involved and that it was him and the doctor. But up until these questions are answered, we will remain doubtful, we will remain in doubt, we will remain uncertain, and we can only speculate.
Right. Now, look, I'm aware that you've got to leave at 8:30. This is a pre-recording. We've got about 15 minutes to go. So I'm just going to go to the next logical question, and that is, what is the state of security in the correctional services in South Africa?
Well, at this stage, it's actually being the subject of review, in the sense that the two big prisons in South Africa, that is where the Bloemfontein one and the other one, Matache, that is in Limpopo, they are being guarded by this G4S company on a 25-year lease. But in the wake of the Thabo Bester escape, the department has now taken over. It is now in the process of terminating the contract, having been given the legal opinion. So we do believe and expect that those who will come again in the wake of these developments will then have the interest of the society at heart. They will not look into their pockets. But again, the longer the security contracts, the more problems we seem to be having. Because I remember I asked one question in one of my writings that I think got your attention, as to if ever we were to look into the conduct or the performance of the security companies, is this the only major scandal that we will come across? What other else has been hidden from the public that one day perhaps will wake up and be subjected to further embarrassment and humiliation? So the question of the security actually is being beefed up. But again, if ever there is no vetting of the prison warders of the correctional facilities, we may still be faced with the same problems.
Yeah, look, I just look no further than the fact that when you look at correctional services and you look at how Bosasa, which was central to state capture, seemed to have all the contracts with correctional services, that there seems to be something very smelly in that organization going way back.
Well, that could be one, but again, my emphasis on the vetting of correctional services is that we seem to have a mindset that correctional services is one of the important departments, and it is quite important because if ever the offenders or prisoners, as they are called, spend their time in there to account actually for their actions, the expectations, Julie, will be that it would mean that the people who are now authorized or have a responsibility to oversee that, they need to change their method of the game. The question of the security cannot be limited only to people coming to visit, being searched there, and then it ends there. We also need to look into the decision-making process, the issue of governance of people at these facilities, the risk analysis, the threats, the challenges, all these things coming when they are put together, they make up the security issue. So all these issues should not be looked in isolation, but they should be clubbed together so that when we look at the issue of governance holistically, we can look into what are the operational areas that warrant further action that warrant further intervention, and where there is wrongdoing, let it be exposed and let the public be taken in confidence that out of this prison or one or two things that we did find in relation to governance, in relation to risk, in relation to financial management, and that also includes perhaps the awarding of the contracts, any form of tenders that go out, that it becomes a huge wide range, it's a huge range actually of issues when we look at the issue of security in prisons. It should not be limited to people coming in, being searched at the gates, and then it ends there. Let's also look inside the decision-making process and the governance in its broadest terms.
Yeah, okay, I totally get it. Now, considering the fact that Thabo Bester and I think his doctor girlfriend were found in Tanzania, in East Africa. I actually grew up in Tanzania. I was born in Dar es Salaam and lived in a little town called Iringa, which is in the southern highlands of Tanzania. How did they get out of South Africa and get into Tanzania? And above that, when all this came out, did South Africa handle the situation regarding Thabo Bester correctly?
One of the things that came up was that actually when Thabo Bester left and ultimately got picked up in Tanzania, we had just been alerted to the fact that the Guptas had left. There was the one Prophet Bushir who also had left. And I remember asking, how is it possible that these people who are on the wrong side of the law find it easy just to commit a crime in South Africa and wake up in another country the following day? What is happening at our borders? And that also brings into the element of security at the borders, whether briberies are happening, whether there is corruption. But I'm assured the Minister of Home Affairs has actually gone all out to say he is investigating. We're still waiting for the outcome of the investigation report. Coming back to your issue, yes, we were all surprised, but it also showed the extent to which the borders can be manipulated, the officials being employed there to bring in more trouble for the country, because if they do not have the security cluster to make sure that people do not just easily find their way out, knowing very well that they're being wanted here, we expect more severe consequences and more action on the part of the people who are at the borders. I mean, nobody even today is able to explain how did Prophet Bushiri escape, and we know that he went through one of the borders. So again, it's a question of the security, and it's not only the people checking in the passports, the decision-making process, the governance, and holistically the issues around the process from the beginning of the movement of a person from one country up until arrival in another. That whole process, if ever it can be checked, we will be able to find answers. Yes, I do believe that South Africa did play its part. It did well in terms of following the issue up to Tanzania upon being alerted to a suspicious person who, by the way, when the police in Tanzania stopped that vehicle, they did not know that it was Thabo Bester. They just picked up the suspicious people. And once they were processed, that is when it was found that these are the people who have been wanted in South Africa for too long. South Africa did not take time. It dispatched a plane with the officials from the National Prosecuting Authority, the police, and the Justice Department to go and bring them back here. We applaud the government of South Africa for doing so.
Well, you know, I traveled around Africa in 2016. And when you go into Malawi, you need to have the yellow fever injection. And there was a couple in our group who didn't have it. And the corruption was so blatant, it was crazy. The border guard said, look, you either pay us $1,000 US, or you don't go through. It was nothing to do whether he'd had the yellow fever vaccine or not. It was all about, here's a bribe, you pay me $1,000, and of course the guy had no choice. He paid him $1,000. He had to rally around with a few of the people on the tour, but that's right through Africa. It's absolutely crazy, but that's not part of what
It
we're.
is, ve- it is very crazy. It is very crazy because I still do believe that a proper investigation ought to be made in relation to how did, over and above how Thabo Best escaped from prison, as to how did he escape the country.
Yeah,
Because I'm raising this issue because of the Bushiri issue, of the Gupta's issue, such that it does not become easier to commit a crime here and wake up in another country, because otherwise then we will not be having any law to maintain in South Africa if ever our borders can be used as crime scenes. We would not want to have that type of a situation. Again, corruption seems to have played a bigger role here because obviously, remember, I think he was still on traveling towards Kenya, if I recall. So that is a huge issue that should not be stopped there. I do believe that the appropriate action will be taken against those officials at Home Affairs and the borders in particular who made this escape possible.
well, look, I believe corruption starts from the fish rots from the head. And when Ramaphosa went to Ukraine and Russia last week, and their plane got apprehended in Poland, there's been a lot of talk about all the weaponry and the the security detail and stuff like that. I have seen evidence that there was a huge amount of cash. I'm not talking about bank account. I'm talking about physical cash in suitcases on that plane. And that was one of the big issues that this is called money laundering that was going on, and it involved the president directly. This is this is the sort of shit that is happening in South Africa. So it's no surprise to me that things are going pear-shaped. Look, I don't want to go there because I've actually got a discussion on that subject at the end of June with someone who's very familiar with the situation. And we're going to be talking about what actually happened in Poland with that plane that was apprehended and stopped, and the focus was on the weaponry and not on the cash, which they found as well. Now, just in closing, Selby, the court processes. What is the current state of issues before the courts?
The current state of issues is that the charge sheet has been drawn up. The suspects are appearing in court. I'm just not sure the number because it would appear like the more they investigate, the more arrests are being made. The last time issue appeared 2 days ago. It has been postponed. They are facing various charges of corruption, bribery, defeating the ends of justice. And it will also because they are appearing separately. Another set of people are appearing on charges of bringing in a banned body inside the prison cells. That whole process in itself. There is also the question of escape. There are quite a number of charges that are being pursued by the state at this stage against Thabo and the good doctor. So we will see how at the end, when the evidence is presented in court, what ultimate determination will be made.
Right. Look, I would love to have you back on after this is all over. So I'll ask Marlene to see if we can tie that up. But with the court system in South Africa, that might be years away. But in wrapping up this live stream, we're getting close to 8:30. I don't want to keep you. Is there anything you'd like to send out as a message to people who watch this video now or might watch later?
Well, no, not much, except to say thank you very much for inviting me to share my thoughts. I've written a lot extensively around this particular issue, and I'm glad that actually could pick up value and some sense to invite me to come to this debate, to this show, so not debate. And we will be watching the proceedings with keen interest.
Yeah.
And making sure that at the end of the day, we demand accountability for whoever or all the people who were involved in this. Their role should be exposed, and this should be the first and the last for South Africa that we get such a international humiliation as a result of a few corrupt individuals.
Great. Now, Selby, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I appreciate your time. I know you're busy. It's getting close to 8:30, so I'm going to have to let you go. Have a great day, and look, we'll be in touch in the future.
Thank you very much. God bless.
Yeah, God bless. Bye for now.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that was Selby. Hi, Selby, good to see you. Hang on, let me just shut this down.
Good morning, Scott. Thank you for inviting me. Good morning to
Oh, gosh, here we go. Okay, I'll get rid of it. All right, so that was obviously pre-recorded. Now, thanks to the mods for keeping an eye on the side chat, and don't forget, tomorrow night I will be having a break because of maintenance to the electricity lines. I get up at a crazy hour, 2:30 in the morning, so that's when they do the maintenance on electricity, so it is what it is. But tonight I'm going to go out with one of our favorite songs, which is Op Ons Rots. So let's do that. Here we go. Have a great evening, everybody, and see you Wednesday night. Bye for now.
Ons loop hand aan hand op goue warm sand, so baie wat ek wil hê, so baie dit brand. Ek staan op my rots met golwe wat bots. Ons het geen vrees, want hy is in beheer. Ons sien al die planne van goddeloze manne. Ons weet hulle gaan nie wen nie, dis geskryf soos 'n duif. Ons sal wen, aanhoge, want hy is in beheer. Baie sterk, dis kragte wat werk. Die gevoel in my hart, dis vrees wat wil brand. Ons is boere met trots, met my hand in my bors. Ons ken geen vrees, want hy is in beheer. Ons sien